She called the cops on me for parking my truck at my own mailbox. What she didn't know, she'd been living on my land for 20 years without paying a single dollar in rent. The lease had expired. The road was mine. And I was about to cut off the only exit for 300 families who thought they owned paradise. Veronica Ashford, self-proclaimed Queen of Ridgemont Hills, was about to learn the hard way that some people you just don't mess with, especially when they hold the keys to your entire world. The Mercedes horn cut through the November morning like a blade. I'd just parked my 2010 Silverado beside the cluster mailbox when the pearl-white luxury sedan deliberately angled into position, blocking my exit with calculated precision. Veronica Ashford stepped out, and those Louboutin heels hit the pavement in sharp clicks that echoed off the surrounding hills. That Cartier bracelet on her wrist caught the morning sunlight as she gestured dismissively toward my truck. Like she was swatting away an insect, I quietly retrieved the envelope from my mailbox. The return address read, Bennett Family Trust Legal Division in bold. Official lettering. Veronica's eyes locked onto that letterhead like a heat-seeking missile, and I watched her perfectly manicured fingers tighten almost imperceptibly around her quilted Chanel purse. The confident smile never left her carefully maintained face. But something flickered behind those cold blue eyes. A quick calculation. Fear disguised as contempt. For just half a second, her tongue darted across her lower lip. The only tell that this morning wasn't going according to whatever script she'd rehearsed in that Mercedes on the drive over. Park that piece of trash somewhere else, she said, her voice dripping with the kind of contempt wealthy people spend years perfecting. This is a community with standards. Thomas. Standards you clearly don't understand or meet. She reached into her designer purse with theatrical precision and produced a violation sticker. The backing peeled away with that distinctive ripping sound. Vehicle does not meet community aesthetic standards. She read aloud with obvious satisfaction, pressing the bright orange adhesive against my driver's side window with deliberate force. The sticker was designed to shame. A scarlet letter for the automotive age. You don't belong here. Thomas, she continued, pronouncing my name like it was something distasteful. Maybe it's time to find somewhere more suitable for people like you. People in your circumstances. The way she emphasized circumstances made it sound like a contagious disease. Behind her. Ridgemont Hills stretched across the Colorado Valley like an architect's fever dream. 300 homes arranged with mathematical precision. Each residence a monument to wealth, designed to project affluence without necessarily having substance to back it up. I stood there, looking past her to the sprawling development, and something stirred deep in my memory. Something that went beyond simple recognition. I know this land, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. My voice was barely above a whisper, but I saw Veronica's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. It looked so different now. Covered in mansions and perfect lawns where I remembered open meadows and wild aspens. But the contours of the hills were unmistakable. To someone who'd spent childhood summers exploring every ridge and hollow, in my jacket pocket, the brass key my uncle had left me pressed against my ribs. Warm, heavy with meaning I was only beginning to understand. His words echoed in my memory like a prophecy I dismissed as the ramblings of a dying old man. Thomas. They might buy houses and pay property taxes, but this land will always be Bennett land, no matter what papers they sign or how much money they spend. When he'd said those words 3 years ago in his hospice room, I'd assumed it was just elderly stubbornness. But standing here now, Looking at these expensive homes built where I'd played as a child, those words took on new and potentially explosive meaning. Veronica's heels clicked as she walked back toward her Mercedes, each step marking territory in the morning quiet. I trust we understand each other perfectly now. Thomas. She called without looking back, her voice carrying absolute confidence. The luxury vehicle's door closed with that expensive thunk. German engineers spent millions perfecting. I watched as she drove deeper into Ridgemont Hills, past the limestone entrance, declaring, "Exclusive mountain community," living in brass letters designed to intimidate. But as her pearl white Mercedes disappeared around the curve, something continued to nag at me with increasing insistence, a feeling that went far beyond the humiliation of her words or the sting of that orange sticker. In my center console, rolled up like contraband, sat survey papers from 1993, marked confidential in faded red ink. My uncle had shown them to me only once, his weathered hands trembling as he traced property lines that seemed to encompass far more territory than I'd realized. The brass key in my pocket seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat now, calling me toward answers I wasn't entirely sure I was ready to find. I climbed back into my Silverado and sat for a long moment, studying the certified letter that had triggered such an interesting reaction from Veronica Ashford. The paper felt thick and official, sealed with the kind of gravity that suggested contents capable of changing lives. My uncle's voice whispered from memory, "Never sign anything when they're being sweet to you. Boy, that's when they're most dangerous." As I drove away from the mailbox, the morning light revealed details I hadn't consciously noticed before. The road surface was newer than it should be for a county route. Smooth, expertly maintained in a way that spoke to serious money. The utility lines were all buried, completely invisible. Every tree seemed placed with deliberate purpose. Every sightline meticulously managed to create the illusion of natural beauty while maintaining perfect order. This wasn't just a housing development. This was a complete transformation of an entire landscape. I pulled over at the crest of Ridge Road and looked back at the 300 homes nestled in the valley below. From this vantage point, I could see the entire scope of Ridgemont Hills. The golf course carved from what used to be meadowland, the artificial lake where my uncle's dogs had once splashed, the network of streets built over paths I'd walked as a boy. The infrastructure represented tens of millions in investment, possibly hundreds of millions, all of it sitting on land that looked suspiciously familiar to anyone who'd grown up exploring these hills. But it was more than just familiarity that troubled me. It was the way Veronica had reacted to that legal letterhead, that barely controlled panic when she saw Bennett Family Trust Legal Division for someone who claimed absolute authority over this valley. She'd shown genuine fear at my family name on official correspondence. The violation sticker on my window caught the light like a declaration of war. But as I looked at those expensive homes built where my ancestors had run cattle for 4 generations, one question burned in my mind. Veronica moved through this landscape with the confidence of absolute ownership, treating every square foot like her personal property, dismissing anyone who didn't meet her standards with casual cruelty. So why? When she saw simple mail from Bennett Family Trust, had she looked like someone who'd just seen a ghost? I headed home, that brass key growing heavier in my pocket with every mile. Tomorrow, I'd finally open my uncle's safe and examine whatever secrets he'd been protecting. Something told me that Veronica's perfect world was built on foundations that might not be as solid as they appeared. The brass key felt heavier in my hand that evening as I descended the basement steps. like it carried the weight of secrets my uncle had been keeping for decades. The old safe stood in the corner where it had always been, a massive steel monument from the 1940s that had survived floods, wildfires, and 4 generations of Bennett family mysteries. I slipped the key into the lock and heard that familiar click. But tonight, the sound echoed with unusual finality, like I was opening a door that could never be closed again once I understood what lay beyond. The heavy door swung open with a groan that spoke of long-sealed mysteries finally seeing daylight. Inside, I found a collection of documents that would fundamentally change everything I thought I knew. The musty smell of old paper and leather mingled with the basement's dampness, creating an atmosphere that felt like opening a time capsule from an era when a man's word meant something. The hand-drawn survey from 1993 lay on top, its edges yellowed, but the red ink property lines still bold across cream-colored paper. Beneath it, legal documents organized in manila folders marked with my uncle's careful handwriting. Cedar Ridge Development Corporation, Land Lease Agreement. The top folder read, I lifted out photographs from decades past, black and white images of rolling meadows where cattle grazed, the same hills I could see from my kitchen window, but transformed now. At the very bottom, written in my uncle's spidery script on paper that looked handled many times, was a note that stopped my heart. Land Lease Agreement, 1993 to 2033. Cedar Ridge Development defaulted 2007. Check with county records before signing anything. They don't know I kept copies of everything. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Everything I thought I knew about Ridgemont Hills was built on deception, stretching back 3 decades. I carried the documents upstairs to the kitchen table where my uncle and I had shared countless meals. I spread the survey across the scarred wooden surface. The red ink boundaries encompassed an area that made my coffee mug tremble as I set it down. Every street, every house, every lawn of Ridgemont Hills fell within those crimson lines. They built their entire world on our land. I whispered to the empty kitchen. The survey showed not just boundaries, but improvements and developments, and most importantly, a notation that made my blood run cold. Primary access road specifically excluded from lease agreement. Bennett family retained permanent right-of-way control. The mathematical precision told a story of careful planning hidden for 3 decades. The back porch offered the perfect vantage point. I stepped outside with the survey in my hands, comparing red lines to reality spread below. From this elevation, I could trace every rooftop, every street, every amenity, and all of it sat squarely within the boundaries my uncle had drawn more than 30 years ago. The expensive homes that had intimidated me suddenly looked smaller from up here. Temporary, somehow. The infrastructure represented millions, but it was all built on land that had never stopped being Bennett property. Uncle Robert. I said aloud to the evening air, "You saw this coming, didn't you?" Back inside with my heart pounding, I began reading through legal documents with careful attention. Each page revealed another layer of deception so vast I could barely comprehend its scope. The original lease agreement showed Cedar Ridge Development paying $90,000 per year for the right to develop residential housing on Bennett land from 1993 to 2033. A 40-year lease that seemed generous, but now looked like a bargain that cost my family millions. The terms were crystal clear. Cedar Ridge could build houses and infrastructure, but underlying land ownership remained permanently with the Bennett family. When the lease expired, everything would revert to Bennett control, but Cedar Ridge had other plans. plans involving systematic fraud that would destroy hundreds of families. The bankruptcy filing from 2007 told the story of Cedar Ridge's collapse, but it was the trustee appointment document that made everything click. Veronica Ashford hadn't just been involved. She'd been appointed bankruptcy trustee responsible for managing Cedar Ridge's assets after the company failed. As trustee, she'd had complete access to all records, including the lease agreement that should have been disclosed to every buyer. Instead, she'd used her position to conceal the truth. The fraud was breathtaking. As I pieced together documents, I realized 300 families had been systematically deceived. Veronica had used her trustee position to conceal the land lease from buyers, allowing them to purchase houses while believing they owned the underlying land. Each family had signed documents and paid closing costs, believing they were buying permanent ownership, when in reality they were inheriting nothing more than the remaining term of a lease expiring in 2033. 300 families paid between $600,000 and $3 million each. I said aloud, "For houses sitting on land they'll never own." The mathematics were staggering. Conservative estimates put total fraudulent sales at over $300 million. These weren't speculators. These were families with children who'd saved for years to buy what they thought was the American dream, but it was the road that represented the true key. Mountain View Drive wasn't just the main entrance. It was the only practical route in or out. The original lease had specifically excluded the road from any development rights, meaning every morning commute, every delivery, every emergency vehicle had to cross Bennett land, and not one resident had any legal right to be there. Veronica's perfect kingdom was connected by a narrow bottleneck I could close with a phone call. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Evening light was fading as I sat back in my uncle's chair. Veronica's reaction to the letterhead made perfect sense now. She wasn't worried about a minor dispute. She was terrified that decades of deception were finally coming to light. Every insult had been motivated by fear. The orange sticker wasn't harassment. It was desperation. She'd spent 20 years building her empire on stolen land. I walked to the porch as darkness settled. Lights of 300 homes twinkling below. Each one represented a family robbed of their right to know the truth. The road curved through the landscape like a lifeline. And I finally understood what my uncle had meant. He hadn't been talking about nostalgia. He'd been talking about legal reality, deliberately hidden by conspiracy of silence and greed. Tomorrow, Veronica would wake up never suspecting the man she'd humiliated held documents that could destroy everything. The question wasn't whether she knew about the lease. The trustee documents proved she'd been instrumental in concealing it. The real question was what I was going to do. But as I looked at that road winding through darkness, I realized I held more than evidence. I held the key to the entire community's survival, because without access across Bennett land, Ridgemont Hills would become the most expensive ghost town in Colorado, and Veronica had just made the fatal mistake of treating the landowner like garbage. 2 days later, Veronica knocked on my door wearing a smile so sweet it could cure diabetes. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the woman who'd humiliated me, replaced by someone radiating concern in a powder blue Chanel suit. "Thomas, I think we got off on the wrong foot," she began. "I'd like to discuss some complications that have come to our attention." Behind her stood a man in expensive charcoal suit carrying thick leather briefcase. "This is Richard Pemberton, our legal counsel," Veronica said smoothly. "He specializes in complex property matters. We're concerned about issues that could affect both of us." Pemberton stepped forward with confident smile. "May we come in?" Veronica asked, already stepping toward threshold. I let them enter. Curiosity, overcoming caution. Pemberton set his briefcase down with ceremonial precision. Thomas, I'll be direct because I believe in treating people with respect. Pemberton began. We've discovered historic survey discrepancies that could create significant legal complications. The kind that generate expensive litigation and years of uncertainty while lawyers get rich. Veronica leaned forward with deep concern. To protect you from potential litigation from 300 homeowners. We're prepared to offer $1.2 million for the entire ranch. Clean transfer. No questions asked. The number hung in the air like glittering lure. Impressive, but nowhere near true value. You could start fresh somewhere more suitable. She continued. Pemberton pulled out document with multiple pages. We're calling it a Property Resolution Agreement. It resolves all outstanding issues. No lawyers. No depositions. No years of uncertainty. I picked up the contract and began reading. The terms appeared straightforward. $1.2 million for 3,000 acres to be transferred immediately. But red flags began appearing. No property appraisal mentioned. And buried deep on page 7, a clause that made my blood run cold. Buyer assumes all historic lease obligations. Just one signature. Thomas. Veronica said softly, and all this stress disappears. Take the money and start over somewhere comfortable. For a moment. I felt myself wavering, but my uncle's voice echoed. Never sign anything when they're being nice to you. Boy. I set the pen down and read again. Wait. I said, looking up. This clause about immediate transfer seems unusually urgent. And what's this about buyer assuming lease obligations? What lease obligations? Veronica's face flickered. Just old paperwork. Nothing serious. Ancient easements. Pemberton was already reaching for the contract. Show me the paperwork first. I said firmly. If it's insignificant? Let me see what I'd be assuming. The silence was deafening. Then Veronica stood abruptly. You'll regret this. Thomas Bennett, she said coldly. When 300 families decide to protect their investments, you'll wish you'd taken our offer. Pemberton was already packing his briefcase after they left. My living room felt like a battlefield. The agreement lay open, and now I could see their trap clearly. $1.2 million for land worth $60 million or more. Immediate transfer to prevent second thoughts. And most tellingly, a clause that would have made me responsible for lease obligations they refused to explain. I walked to my computer. Cedar Ridge Development, Bankruptcy, 2007. First article, Veronica Ashford appointed bankruptcy trustee. She hadn't just known about the lease. She'd been the court-appointed official responsible for managing assets. Every concerned expression had been calculated to conceal 20 years of deception. If I'd signed, I would have walked away with a fraction of land's value while assuming responsibility for a lease Veronica had hidden for 2 decades. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated the man whose family had owned this land for 4 generations. That arrogance was about to become very expensive. Next morning, I began documenting everything. Every lease payment defaulted. Every disclosure Veronica failed to make. Every family she'd deceived. The legal system moved slowly, but it moved with terrible certainty when presented with evidence this clear. Veronica had spent 20 years building her empire on stolen land and borrowed time. But time, like patience, eventually ran out. The Boulder County Records Office occupied gray concrete building that looked deliberately uninspiring. I arrived when doors opened at 8, armed with my uncle's documents. Maria Santos, the senior clerk, looked up with patient expression. I need to research the Cedar Ridge bankruptcy from 2007. I told her, specifically how the trustee handled lease obligations and what disclosures were made to buyers. Maria's eyebrows rose as she examined the lease. "Mr. Bennett," she said quietly, "if these documents are accurate, this is substantial fraud case." Within 3 hours, we had assembled damning evidence. The original lease showed Cedar Ridge owing $2.1 million in back rent by bankruptcy. The filing listed Veronica as trustee with full authority over disclosure obligations. Most significantly, home sales records from 2008 through 2024 showed 0 lease disclosures. "You have multiple legal remedies," Maria explained, "but each carries different consequences for families involved." That afternoon, I purchased every legal reference related to Colorado real estate law. Back home, I began educating myself about landlord rights when tenants default. I consulted with Jennifer Martinez, a sharp-eyed attorney. "Mr. Bennett," she said after reviewing my evidence, "you have an ironclad case. The question isn't whether you'll win, it's how you want to win and what collateral damage you're willing to accept." That evening, I sat in my truck with legal pad, methodically listing strategic options. Option A, sue for $2.1 million in back rent, bankrupting Veronica but leaving homeowners in limbo. Option B, terminate lease immediately and evict 300 families. Option C, sell the access road to force negotiations. Option D, expose the fraud publicly and let families sue Veronica themselves. I circled option C. The families were victims. They deserved a chance to protect investments, but Veronica needed to understand immediately that her deception was over. Selling the road would send that message while giving homeowners time to organize. Next morning, I called Colorado Commercial Properties. "What's the market value of a 1-mile private access road?" The answer came without hesitation. Depending on buyer and strategic importance, anywhere from $3 to $5 million. I spent the week researching potential buyers. Rocky Mountain Medical Center had been seeking emergency access routes to serve mountain communities. Their expanding trauma services required reliable transportation corridors. The hospital's chief administrator, Dr. Patricia Chen, was known for decisive action when community health was at stake. The legal framework was surprisingly straightforward. As owner of Mountain View Drive, I could sell usage rights to any party without Veronica's consent. The road had never been part of Cedar Ridge's lease agreement. 300 families had been using Bennett property without legal right. That access had been granted through my family's tolerance, and tolerance could be withdrawn. By Friday afternoon, I had compiled complete strategy. The road sale would create negotiating pressure without destroying lives. More importantly, it would demonstrate to the community that their ownership was an illusion. That afternoon, I drove slowly past the Ridgemont Hills entrance. The expensive sign proclaimed exclusive mountain community living. Tomorrow, I would begin teaching Veronica exactly how exclusive their situation really was, and how quickly exclusivity could become isolation when the person controlling access decided that 20 years of deception was long enough. Within 48 hours of my visit to county records, Veronica transformed into a woman waging total war. My internet provider called about sophisticated external access to my email. Someone had paid professionals to hack my communications, desperate enough to risk federal charges. When I drove past Community Center that evening, every parking space was filled, through windows. I could see Veronica gesturing dramatically while 300 neighbors listened with fire drill attention. Next morning, a black Escalade followed me through Ridgemont streets. At the stop sign, it pulled alongside aggressively. Veronica sat in passenger seat, pointing at me while barking rapid instructions. The light turned green, and the Escalade cut me off hard. 3 men emerged. I stayed in my truck. Window cracked. Problem. Gentlemen, I asked. Yes. Veronica Spot. You. This ends now. I pulled out my legal folder. No, ma'am, I said quietly. This is just beginning. The intimidation escalated over the week. Social media posts painted me as dangerous. Police received anonymous tips. My utility got complaints about fake bills. The HOA attorney sent threatening letters. But every threat was documented. I'd installed cameras everywhere, screenshot every post, saved every email, built comprehensive case showing coordinated harassment. The breaking point came at grocery store. Veronica cornered me with 10 supporters blocking my path. You cannot destroy our homes, she announced. Your homes, I asked. Or your rented lots. The murmur told me most had never heard rented connected to their property. He's lying, she said quickly. We own our properties. I pulled out survey map. Anyone want to check if your deed mentions the lease agreement? Silence. County records are public information. I continued. Look up Cedar Ridge Development Bankruptcy 2007. Ask about the trustee and required disclosures. Veronica went visibly pale. That night, she called at 11:47. $600,000 cash. Her voice came through with raw desperation. You leave Colorado permanently. When I didn't respond, her tone turned menacing. Or we make your life very difficult. Thomas Bennett. I hung up and looked at contract doctor. Chen had delivered that afternoon. Rocky Mountain Medical Center. Private Emergency Access Road Agreement. $3.8 million. Tomorrow morning. I would make the phone call that would end Veronica's kingdom at exactly 6 o'clock. I sat across from Dr. Sinstade. Patricia Chen. This road gives us critical emergency access, she explained. Our response times improve by 12 to 15 minutes. That could mean difference between life and death for cardiac patients. We both signed. The check for $3,800,000 lay between us. By 7. Hospital trucks were transforming the entrance. By 8, Jennifer Walsh discovered the new reality when her Range Rover approached the security barrier. Orange cones channeled traffic toward checkpoint where lights and signs proclaimed Rocky Mountain Medical Center private emergency access. Only authorized vehicles. Only... The guard approached. Ma'am, this is hospital property. I need authorization. I live here. Jennifer shouted. Sorry, ma'am. Contact administration. She called Veronica screaming. Within 15 minutes, vehicles backed up for half a mile. BMW, Mercedes, Tesla. Millions in automotive luxury going nowhere. Veronica arrived at 8:30 in silk pajamas, hair uncombed. She jumped the barrier. What is this? I'm the HOA president, the guard radioed. Security. Someone claiming to be president when Veronica called me? Her voice carried. "You can't do this. Check your deed." I said calmly, "The road was never yours." 3 seconds of silence. Then screaming, the guard recorded. By 9, news helicopters circled. 300 families held hostage. Reporters announced. The most interesting calls came from residents asking what they'd actually bought. The live interview sealed her fate. Miss Ashford. County records show Bennett ownership since '52. Those records are wrong. She screamed. I stepped forward. The road's been Bennett property since '52. I sold it to help the hospital. If the HOA wants access, negotiate with administration. Veronica lunged. Security grabbed her. Her meltdown played on every channel. The community shifted. Residents searched records. By evening, hospital had rules. $50 per day. Waivers required. Emergency vehicles first. The community center had never seen this. Inside, Veronica stood at podium. "Thomas Bennett is extorting us." The crowd murmured, "We'll sue him." But I wasn't in back. I'd sat anonymously in last row. Robert Wilson stood. "Veronica, what's this land lease thing?" "Just old paperwork," she said. I walked forward. "May I clarify? I connected my laptop." First slide. Cedar Ridge Development Land Lease Agreement, 93-33. Your homes sit on leased land. I said, "Lease expires 33. Everything reverts to Bennett family." Chaos erupted. Second slide. Veronica's trustee appointment. She was responsible for disclosing this. Third slide. No lease disclosure on any sale. Fourth. 2.1 million unpaid rent. Then, audio. Her voice, "I've known about the land lease from day one." Silence. Second, recording, 600,000 cash. You disappear. The crowd exploded. She knew FBI agent Thompson stepped forward. "Veronica Ashford, you're under arrest." Handcuffs clicked. I addressed the community. "I don't want anyone losing homes. I'll sell land at fair price. 30-year financing at 3%. Payments replace HOA fees. You'll actually own your land." 6 months later, Veronica got 6 years plus $5 million restitution. Class action settled for $85 million. 280 families bought their land. The new sign, Ridgemont Hills, a neighborhood of owners. I created Bennett Truth Foundation. $30 million endowment to fight fraud nationwide. Evening on porch. Watching cattle. Radio Bennett case becoming legislation. Text Phoenix case 1. The ranch sign, home of Bennett Truth Foundation, protecting property rights. Tomorrow brings new cases. But tonight, hearing cattle and ambulances. I felt it. We built something real. Veronica tried to destroy honesty. Her failure proved greed can't win. She built on lies and lost to the man she mocked. Integrity wins. I just parked my 2010 Silverado when the pearl white sedan blocked my exit. Veronica Ashford stepped out. Heels clicking like a countdown. That Cartier bracelet caught the sunlight as she gestured at my truck. I retrieved the envelope from my mailbox. Return address, Bennett Family Trust Legal Division. Veronica's eyes locked onto it, and I caught the flicker. Fear disguised as contempt. For half a second, her tongue darted across her lip. The only tell that this wasn't going according to plan, park that piece of trash somewhere else. She said, "This is a community with standards you clearly don't meet." She slapped an orange violation sticker on my window. "You don't belong here. Thomas, maybe find somewhere more suitable for people like you." Behind her, 300 homes spread across the Colorado Valley. Expensive. Perfect. Built where I used to catch frogs as a kid. "I know this land," I said quietly. Her jaw tightened. In my pocket? The brass key my uncle left me, pressed against my ribs. His dying words echoed, "They might buy houses, but this land will always be Bennett land." I'd thought he was just bitter. I was wrong. Veronica drove off, leaving me with that sticker. But as I drove away, I noticed things. The road was too new for a county route. Utilities all buried. Every tree placed with purpose. This wasn't just a neighborhood. This was a transformation. I pulled over at Ridge Road and looked back. 300 homes. Golf course. Artificial lake. All on land that looked too familiar. But what really bothered me was that look on Veronica's face when she saw my family name on legal documents. She'd ruled this valley for 20 years. So why did one envelope make her look terrified? That brass key felt heavier with every mile. My uncle had shown me survey papers once, marked confidential. Tomorrow, I'd open his safe. Something told me Veronica's perfect world was built on sand. The basement was cold when I descended that night. The old safe stood in the corner. Massive steel from the 40s. I slid the key in. The door swung open. Inside were documents that would burn her kingdom down. The survey from '93 sat on top. Red ink property lines cut across yellowed paper. Beneath it, folders. Cedar Ridge Development Corporation. Land lease agreement. I pulled out photographs. Cattle grazing, where mansions now stood. At the bottom, a note in his script. Land lease agreement 93 to 33. Cedar Ridge defaulted '07. They don't know I kept everything. My hand shook, carrying papers upstairs. I spread the survey across the kitchen table. Every street, every house, every lawn in Ridgemont Hills fell inside those red lines. Then I saw it. Primary access road specifically excluded from lease agreement. Bennett family retained permanent control. I walked to the porch. From here, I could see Veronica's entire empire, all sitting on Bennett property. Uncle Robert. You knew. Back inside. I started reading. Original lease was clear. Cedar Ridge paid $90,000 per year to build houses on our land from '93 to '33. 40 years. When the lease expired, everything reverted to us. Simple. Legal. Ironclad. Then came the bankruptcy filing from '07. Cedar Ridge collapsed, owing $2.1 million in back rent. And the trustee Veronica Ashford, she'd had access to every document. As trustee, she was legally required to disclose the lease to buyers. But sales records told a different story. '08 through '24. 300 homes sold. 0 lease disclosures. Not one. She sold houses on rented land and told nobody. 300 families paid between $600,000 and $3 million each, thinking they owned paradise. They owned nothing. The lease expires in '33, less than 10 years away. When it does, they lose everything. Total fraud, over $300 million. But the best part, the access road was never included. Mountain View Drive, the only way in or out, belonged to Bennett family. Every morning commute, Every delivery. Every ambulance crossed my land. Not one person had legal permission. Veronica's kingdom hung by a thread. My thread. And I could cut it whenever I wanted. Her reaction made perfect sense now. She wasn't worried about a dispute. She was terrified that 20 years of lies were about to explode. That orange sticker wasn't harassment. It was desperation. I stood on the porch watching 300 homes glow. Each one represented a family she'd lied to. Tomorrow, Veronica would wake up never knowing the man she'd humiliated held documents that could destroy everything. The question was, what to do? Because without access across Bennett land, Ridgemont Hills would become the most expensive ghost town in Colorado. And Veronica had just made the fatal mistake of treating the landowner like garbage. 2 days later, Veronica knocked wearing a smile that could cure diabetes. The transformation was stunning. Gone was the woman who'd called my truck trash. Thomas, I think we started off badly, she said. I'd like to talk about complications. Behind her stood a man in charcoal suit. This is Richard Pemberton, our attorney. We're concerned about issues that could affect everyone. Pemberton's smile said he'd spent 40 years convincing people to sign their lives away. May we come in? Before I could answer, she was inside. Thomas, I'll be direct, Pemberton began. We've found survey discrepancies that could create expensive litigation. Nobody wants that. Veronica leaned forward. To protect you from 300 angry homeowners, we're offering $1.2 million for your ranch. Clean. Simple. Done. $1.2 million for land worth $60 million or more. You could start fresh somewhere comfortable. She continued. Pemberton pulled out a thick document. Property Resolution Agreement resolves everything. No lawyers. No headaches. I picked it up and started reading. $1.2 million for 3,000 acres. Immediate transfer, but buried on page 7, buyer assumes all historic lease obligations. Wait, I said. What lease obligations? Veronica's smile cracked. Just old paperwork. Nothing important. Pemberton reached for the contract. Show me first, I said, holding tight. If it's nothing, let me see what I'm assuming. Silence. Then Veronica stood. You'll regret this, she said coldly. When 300 families come after you, you'll wish you'd taken our offer. They left. The contract sat on my table, and now I could see it. They'd tried to buy my land for pennies and stick me with lease obligations they wouldn't explain. I walked to my computer, Cedar Ridge Development, Bankruptcy 07. First result, Veronica Ashford appointed trustee. She hadn't just known about the fraud. She'd orchestrated it. If I'd signed, I'd have given away everything while taking responsibility for her crimes. But she'd made one mistake. She'd assumed I was too stupid to read fine print. Tomorrow, I'd start documenting everything. Every defaulted payment, every disclosure she'd skipped, every family she'd deceived. The Boulder County Records Office looked like it crushed hope. I arrived at 8 with my uncle's documents. Maria Santos looked up. I need to research the Cedar Ridge bankruptcy, I said, specifically how the trustee handled lease obligations. Maria's eyes widened, examining the lease. Mr. Bennett, if this is real, you're looking at major fraud. 3 hours later, we had everything. Original lease showing $2.1 million unpaid. Trustee appointment Veronica Ashford. Sales records 08 to 24, zero lease disclosures. You have multiple options, Maria said. But each hurts different people. That afternoon, I bought every legal book I could find. I called Jennifer Martinez, a real estate attorney. Mr. Bennett, she said, after reviewing evidence. You have an ironclad case. The question is, how you want to win and who gets hurt. That night, I made a list. Option A, sue for back rent. Bankrupt Veronica. Leave families in limbo. Option B, terminate lease. Evict 300 families. Option C, sell the road. Force negotiations. Give families time. Option D, expose everything. Let families sue Veronica. I circled C. The families were victims. They deserved a chance. But Veronica needed to understand her game was over. Next morning, I called Colorado Commercial Properties. What's a 1-mile access road worth? 3 to 5 million, depending on buyer. I started researching. Rocky Mountain Medical Center needed emergency access to mountain communities. Dr. Patricia Chen was known for fast decisions. As owner of Mountain View Drive, I could sell to anyone. The road was never part of the lease. 300 families had been trespassing for 20 years. That access existed only because my family allowed it. And allowance could end. By Friday, I had a plan. Sell the road, create pressure without destroying lives. Show the community their ownership was a lie. Within 2 days of visiting county records, Veronica declared war. My internet provider called about hack attempts. Someone paid professionals to breach my email. When I drove past the community center, every spot was filled. Through windows, I saw Veronica gesturing at a screen while 300 people listened. Next morning, a black Escalade followed me. At the stop sign, it pulled alongside. Veronica pointed at me while barking orders. The light turned green and the Escalade cut me off. 3 men got out. I stayed in my truck. Window cracked. Problem, I asked. Yes. Veronica Spot. You. This ends now. I pulled out my legal folder. No, ma'am. I said, this is just beginning. The intimidation escalated. Social media posts called me dangerous. Police got anonymous tips. My utility got fake complaints. The HOA attorney sent threatening letters, but every threat was documented. I'd installed cameras everywhere, screenshot every post, saved every email, built a case showing coordinated harassment. The breaking point came at the grocery store. Veronica cornered me with 10 supporters blocking my path. You cannot destroy our homes, she announced. Your homes, I asked. Or your rented lots. The murmur told me most had never heard rented connected to their property. He's lying, she said. We own everything. I pulled out my survey. Anyone want to check if your deed mentions the lease? Silence. County records are public. I continued. Look up Cedar Ridge bankruptcy 07. Veronica went pale. That night, she called at 11:47, 600,000 cash. Her voice came through desperate. You leave Colorado forever. When I didn't respond, her tone turned menacing. Or we make your life very difficult. I hung up and looked at the contract. Dr. Chen had delivered. Rocky Mountain Medical Center. Private emergency access road. $3.8 million tomorrow. I'd make the call that would end her kingdom. At 6 the next morning, I sat across from Dr. Daughter 17's skill. Chen. This road saves lives, she explained. Our response times improve by 15 minutes. That's life or death for cardiac patients. We signed. The check sat between us. $3.8 million. By 7, hospital trucks were at the entrance. By 8, Jennifer Walsh hit the new security barrier in her Range Rover. Orange cones, flashing lights, signs, Rocky Mountain Medical Center, private property authorized, medical vehicles only. The guard approached. Ma'am, this is hospital property. I need authorization. I live here. Jennifer shouted. Sorry, ma'am. Contact administration. She called Veronica, screaming. Within 15 minutes, cars backed up for half a mile. BMW, Mercedes, Tesla, millions in vehicles going nowhere. Veronica arrived at 8:30 in silk pajamas, hair uncombed. She'd driven from bed. She jumped the barrier. What is this? I'm the HOA president. The guard radioed, security. Someone's claiming to be president of something. When Veronica called me, her voice carried. You can't do this. Check your deed. I said, the road was never yours. 3 seconds of silence. Then, screaming, by 9, news helicopters circled. 300 families held hostage. Reporters announced. My phone exploded. But the best calls came from residents asking what they'd actually bought. The live interview sealed her fate. Miss Ashford. County records show Bennett ownership since '52. How do you respond? Those records are wrong. She screamed. I stepped forward. The road's been Bennett property since '52. I sold it to help the hospital save lives. If the HOA wants access, negotiate with administration. Veronica lunged at me. Security grabbed her. Her meltdown played on every channel. The community shifted instantly. Residents searched records on phones. By evening, the hospital had rules. $50 per day, signed waivers. No overnight parking. Emergency vehicles first. At sunset, I watched an ambulance scream through the checkpoint, sirens echoing where my grandfather raised cattle. The driver didn't slow for expensive cars. He was saving a life. That's what Veronica never understood. Power should serve, not control. The community center had never seen this. 300 families couldn't get home. Inside, Veronica stood at the podium. Thomas Bennett is extorting us, she declared. The crowd murmured, we'll sue him for everything. She continued, but I wasn't in the back. I'd sat anonymously in the last row, laptop at my feet. Robert Wilson stood. Veronica. I checked my deed. What's this land lease thing? The room went silent. Just old paperwork, she said. I stood and walked forward. May I clarify? Before she could stop me. I'd connected my laptop. The first slide hit Cedar Ridge Development Land Lease Agreement, 93 to 33. The crowd gasped. Your homes sit on leased land? I said, the lease expires December 31. 33. Then everything reverts to Bennett family. Chaos erupted. The second slide, Veronica's trustee appointment. 07. She was responsible for disclosing this. Third slide, sales records. No lease disclosure on any sale. Fourth slide, 2.1 million in unpaid rent. Then I played the audio. Her voice filled the room. I've known about the land lease from day one. Dead silence. Veronica's face went white. Second, recording, 600,000 cash. You disappear forever. The crowd exploded. She knew. Sarah Mitchell screamed. James Richardson stood trembling. We have mortgages on land we don't own. Veronica tried one last play. I was protecting property values. By lying to us, the crowd roared. FBI agent Sarah Thompson stepped forward. Veronica Ashford, you're under arrest for real estate fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Handcuffs clicked. After they took her, I addressed the community. I don't want anyone losing homes. I'll sell you the land at fair market price. 30-year financing at 3%. Payments replace HOA fees. For the first time, you'll own what's under your houses. 6 months later, Veronica got 6 years plus $5 million restitution. Class action settled for $85 million. I bought back road access for $1 million, keeping the hospital's emergency corridor. 280 families bought their land. 20 sold and moved. The community changed completely. New sign, Ridgemont Hills, a neighborhood of owners. I kept 800 acres for ranching and created the Bennett Truth Foundation, $30 million endowment to fight land fraud nationwide. Mission: nobody loses their home to lies. Evening on the porch. Watching cattle. Radio news. Bennett case becoming national legislation. Text from Maria Phoenix case 1. Families getting their money back? Email preview. San Diego County. 1,700 families. Fraudulent deals. I rocked in my uncle's chair. Some fights are worth taking on the road. The ranch sign reads, Home of Bennett Truth Foundation protecting property rights. Since 2024, tomorrow brings new cases. But tonight, hearing cattle and ambulances saving lives. I felt it. We built something real. Veronica tried to destroy the principle that honesty matters. Her failure proved some things can't be killed by greed. She built a castle on lies and lost it to the man she mocked. Integrity wins.